We continue now with reaction from the developments in Zimbabwe, and we have been covering this throughout the course of the day, and there have been crackdowns in Zimbabwe. We've been speaking to several of people who are actually living in Zimbabwe. We spoke earlier on to a particular psychologist who was talking about the implications of this COVID-19 as well as the crackdown and how this is affecting the psyche and the psychology of Zimbabweans. Also earlier on we spoke to a member of the Zimbabwe Exile Forum talking about the fact that so many of the MDC have been forced to go to various countries in southern Africa trying to find a refuge. We talk now to Tendai Biti, and we talked about the crackdown on civil liberties that continue in Zimbabwe. The President Emmerson Mnangagwa has called on his citizens to unite in the face of difficulties. Now, breaking his silence after days of protests, we heard Mnangagwa saying and assuring Zimbabweans of their civil liberties as well as their individual rights. However, he says that public officials and security forces will continue to enforce COVID-19 lockdown regulations. Now, describing opposition groups behind the protests as destructive terrorists, Mnangagwa says security forces will continue to act against protesters. He has also urged the citizens to be patient as the government's efforts for economic recovery are on course. Now, for a reaction on the story, we joined on the line by the MDC Alliance Deputy President, Mr. Tendai Biti. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Mr. Biti. Your reaction to the President's address today?
Well, look, we never thought that after the demise and departure of Comrade Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe would actually be worse, but it is worse. And it is worse because we are run by clueless, cruel, corrupt individuals in the form of Emmerson and Mnangagwa. The crisis in Zimbabwe belongs on his shoulders. The crisis in Zimbabwe is a byproduct of lack of leadership. There is massive unemployment, 95%. There is massive corruption. There is closure of political space. Everyone is arrested. Church leaders, lawyers, journalists, doctors and nurses, everyone is under threat. Yet Mnangagwa has got the indecency of blaming everyone, calling the MDC Alliance a terrorist organization, calling foreigners dark forces. That's not good enough. This man must resign. This man must go to give Zimbabweans a chance, to give stability a chance, to give democracy a chance, to give hope a chance.
Mr. Biti, his resignation does not seem to be anything that will be forthcoming anytime soon unless something really drastic happens. What type of efforts are you as the opposition and other parties trying to put on the ground to ensure that there is a change in Zimbabwe? The march that was planned for the 31st of July was pretty much of a non-starter.
Look, Zimbabweans are like repressed and oppressed people anywhere in the world. You, comrades in South Africa, you lived the horror and pain of apartheid. We are living our own kind of apartheid, which in some ways is actually more repressive than apartheid. For instance, apartheid never used rape systematically as a weapon against a political opponent. Emmerson is using rape as a weapon against a political opponent. So, as you know, all oppressed people will always rise and dictators will always lose. Zimbabweans want change. Zimbabweans want transformation. Zimbabweans want a humble, empathetic leadership that governs by consent. You have that, we don't have that. So that battle will not stop until there's change. It doesn't matter whether he puts in the military and tanks in the streets as he did last Friday on the 31st of July 2020. It doesn't matter. Change is coming. Change is an idea which no bullet or tank will stop. And Emmerson Mnangagwa needs to know that.
And what are the various elements that are going to ensure that change takes place? We have seen the Rights of Human Rights Watch, for example, also commenting on the situation in Zimbabwe. But what type of support, what type of momentum is needed for that change to happen?
Well, look, what I'm very happy with as an individual is that Zimbabweans have come together now. Just check yesterday. the exponential growth, I think by now it has reached 1 million retweets. The Zimbabwe Lives Matter, campaign. So Zimbabweans have suddenly realized that none but ourselves are the agency of change. That the fight is beyond the MDC alliance and everyone. We all need to come together. So Zimbabweans are providing agency already. But Zimbabwean agency is not enough. We need South Africa. We need Cyril Ramaphosa to provide the leadership that is necessary, because the Zimbabwean crisis needs external refereeing. It needs external scaffolding. So the African Union must step up. The Southern African Development Corporation must step up. And we are very pleased and very indebted to ordinary South Africans who are also stepping up, who are so impressed by the role and the voices of Julius Marema, EFF, Musi Maimane, the big artists, AKA, and so forth. We are very pleased and happy that our brothers and sisters in South Africa have recognized that Emmerson, Mnangagwa, and ZANU-PF are monsters. And monsters have one way to go, one exit road to go, which is to go out, and that's what Zimbabweans are saying.
SADC has been accused of being a band or a ring of a brotherhood. Do you have faith in SADC and the potential role that they can play in shifting and changing the dynamics within Zimbabwe?
Well, I think that the problem with SADC is the assumption that Zimbabwe is a foreign policy issue. But Zimbabwe is not a foreign policy issue. In South Africa right now, there are over 4 million Zimbabweans that are there. Every waiter in a restaurant is a Zimbabwean. That's why some people who don't understand issues like Emmerson are now talking this South Africa first now, which doesn't work because Zimbabwe is imploded. There are millions of Zimbabweans in Botswana, in Namibia, in Mozambique, in Angola. So the issue is Zimbabwe is not a foreign policy issue. And the Southern African region must understand that it cannot afford to remain the only toxic region remaining. You have got problems in Zambia under John Chagwa Lungu. You have got Edgar Chagwa Lungu. You have got problems in Tanzania under John Pombe Magufuli. There are problems in Tanzania in Mozambique under Felipe Nyusi. There are problems in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So SADC needs to get rid of this bad boy, old boys club image, where liberation movements, failed, empowered and exhausted liberation movements are holding the citizen to ransom. Enough of that. We need a democratic SADC region led by young, dynamic leaders who understand that the future is democracy, the future is transformation, the future is development, not old, tired, old guards who are still fighting liberation wars that finished 40, 50, 60 years ago. The likes of Emmerson Mnangagwa, the likes of Joseph Kabila in the DRC Congo. That's not good enough, and we, the citizens, must act with one voice. And the Zimbabwean crisis is uniting everyone. The Zimbabwean crisis is reminding the youth that the future belongs to us.
Mr. Biti, if you look at the timing of when everything is happening, the protests against the Zimbabwean government, but also there is the fight against COVID-19. Do you believe that your voice would have been greater amplified had it not come during this COVID-19 season when everybody is fighting COVID-19? And indeed, President Mnangagwa, when he talks to the country and talks to the citizens of the country, still says that this is a fight against COVID-19 and everything that is happening is in response to COVID-19. Do you believe that this current health crisis is somewhat diluting your voice for change?
Look, African kingpots are using COVID-19 to restrict and constrain people's rights. So COVID-19 in many African states, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, for instance, has been used to justify the imposition of a de facto state of emergency. But people and citizens are realizing that we have got two pandemics. We've got the political pandemic. We have got the disease pandemic. And both pandemic curves need to be flattened. So Zimbabweans have said, let's flatten the political curve. Let's also flatten the disease curve. So those two curves we need to deal with. And demonstrations and protests in America have shown that there is no connection between the increase in COVID numbers, infections, and protests. As long as protests, people keep their distance, which is what happened on Friday, the 31st of July, 2020. So on the contrary, I don't believe COVID is drowning out people's voices. COVID is in fact accentuating, magnifying the contradictions. COVID has been an X-ray that has exposed the tyrannical autocratic dictatorships such as that of Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Where to from here, Mr. Biti?
One way is forward, and forward means the demise, the liquidation, peaceful and constitutional, of Emmerson Mnangagwa, the democratization of Zimbabwe, the transformation of Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans deserve better. Zimbabweans' lives matter too. We want jobs, we want housing, we want decent water, we want decent shelter. For Christ's sake, we just want a government that loves us, a government that lives by consensus, not this fascist rogue element known as Emmerson Mnangagwa.